She was fired for no reason. This is a story about how power is supposed to protect the innocent and what happens when it fails. Stick around to find out how justice is served. The weight of the injustice felt heavier than her suitcase. Emma Sullivan walked down the stone steps, counting each one as a step away from the life she knew. 20 steps to the gate. 20 steps to leave behind 3 years. The setting sun bathed the mansion in a golden light she once loved. It was the same light she and little Charlie used to make shadow puppets with on the wall. A bird, a butterfly, a star. She refused to look back. Looking back would only bring more tears, and she had cried enough already. Her packing had been a blur of jeans, shirts, and the pale blue dress from Charlie's 4th birthday. The one thing she left was the hairbrush Charlie used for her dolls. It belonged to a life that was no longer hers. Rob, the driver, met her at the car, his face filled with the same confusion she felt. No one understood. Her dismissal had been cold and brutally simple. Alexander Thornton had called her into his study, and without making eye contact, informed her that her services were no longer required. No reason, no warning. Emma rested her head against the cold window as the car drove away, watching the mansion disappear. She had arrived here at 24, a new graduate sent for a temporary job, only to meet a 2-year-old girl who changed everything. That little girl had refused to sleep for anyone else. The car passed Waterfront Park, stirring memories of watching the birds with Charlie on hot afternoons. Sometimes, Alex would suddenly appear, escaping his work for just a moment. The three of them would sit and eat ice cream, and he would seem less like a powerful man and more like just a father. Those moments were few, but they were precious. As the car drove through familiar streets, Emma closed her eyes. Her tears were not of anger, but of a profound loss that was just beginning. She would miss everything, from the scent of clean laundry to the sound of Charlie's laughter in the halls. And she would miss Alex's quiet presence when he would come home late to find them watching cartoons. He would always pause in the doorway, watching them for a few moments before speaking. Emma always pretended not to notice, even as her heart beat faster under his gaze. The car stopped in front of a rundown building on the edge of the city. She gave Rob a silent thank you and dragged her suitcase up 3 flights of creaking stairs. The rented room was grim. It held a small bed with faded sheets, a worn-out stove, and peeling paint on the walls. She sat on the bed in the dark, the silence wrapping around her. For 3 years, she had felt like she was part of something. Now, it was all gone. She looked at her empty hands, wondering if it had all been a fantasy. In the solitude of that small, dark room, Emma wept for the years she had lost. Emma Sullivan had never known what a family was. She was discovered as a newborn in a cardboard box outside an orphanage, with no name and no history. Her only possession was the frayed blanket she was wrapped in. While other children were adopted, Emma remained, perhaps too quiet, or too much of a mystery. At 18, she left with a little money she had saved. For 6 years, she worked nonstop, waiting tables and cleaning rooms to afford a college education in child development. At her graduation, she stood by herself in a crowd of celebrating families, feeling completely alone. 3 years ago, at the age of 24, an agency sent her to the Thornton mansion for what was supposed to be a short-term job. She just needed to make rent. But then she met Charlie Thornton. The 2-year-old's mother had died 6 months earlier, and the child was trapped in a deep, inconsolable grief. The previous nanny, a woman with 30 years of experience, had quit, unable to help. Charlie's cries were not those of a typical toddler. They were the sounds of a broken heart. Emma had no special skills, only her own experience with loneliness. She sat down on the floor near the crying child and opened a picture book. She read the story aloud, creating a different voice for every character, from a big bear to a tiny mouse. The crying slowly faded. Charlie watched her, her eyes shifting from curiosity to trust. The little girl crawled over and settled beside Emma. When the book was finished, Charlie lifted her arms to be held. Holding her, Emma felt something inside her change forever. They became inseparable. The temporary job turned permanent, and the cold house filled with laughter again. It was then that she began to notice Alex Thornton. The powerful man would stand in the shadows of the doorway late at night, silently watching them. He never said a word, but Emma always felt his eyes on her. With every beat of her heart, she felt the guilt. A nanny was supposed to be professional, nothing more. But her feelings for Alex had taken root in the dark, growing stronger no matter how she fought them. The battle had become impossible. It was in the accidental brush of his hand as he passed Charlie to her. It was in his tired smile at the end of a long day. It was in the moments the three of them felt like a family. Emma knew she was just an employee, but her heart no longer listened to reason, which is why the morning's dismissal felt so devastating. After she was gone, a heavy silence fell over the mansion. In the kitchen, Maggie O'Brien plunged her wrinkled hands into soapy water. For over 20 years, she had been the Thornton housekeeper. She had seen Alex grow into a man the city feared. She had seen him love Isabel, marry her, and then nearly break after losing her. And then, she watched Emma arrive. She saw the light return to the house. She heard Charlie's laughter fill the halls again. She saw Alex start to live, not just exist. This morning, she witnessed him destroy it all in under 5 minutes. The angry clatter of a pot in the sink was her only protest. It was not her place to tell her boss he was making the mistake of his life. But her eyes, which had seen too much, spoke what her lips could not. They held disappointment and a flicker of contempt for a man she thought was wiser. Upstairs, behind a heavy oak door, Alex Thornton stared at his computer. Charts and numbers blurred. All he could see was Emma walking away. Her warm eyes were filled with shock and pain. She did not cry or beg for an explanation. She just nodded and said, "Yes, Mr. Thornton," before turning her back on him. The way she called him Mr. Thornton felt like a blade twisting in his gut. He had done the right thing. He repeated the words like a desperate prayer. But if it was the right thing, why did it feel like he had just shattered something precious? It all began with a phone call that morning, before his first coffee. It was Victoria Ashford, the woman he almost married 8 years ago. She had reappeared in his life 4 months earlier, more beautiful and polished than ever. She said she was sorry to hear about Isabel and offered her friendship. Alex, buried under the weight of being a single father and running an empire, had accepted her offer. They met for dinner, then lunch. Victoria always knew just what to say. She pretended to be interested in Charlie, even when the little girl was clearly wary of her. And that morning, her voice on the phone was laced with false concern. "I hate to interfere, Alex, but I am worried." He sat up, frowning. "Worried about what?" "About your nanny." Victoria paused for effect. "The way she looks at you is not professional, Alex. An employee should not have that kind of attachment. I just think you should be aware. Who knows what she really wants? Maybe it is your money. Maybe she wants to be the next Mrs. Thornton. Women like her are skilled actors." Alex tried to defend her. "Emma is not like that. She has been with us for 3 years." But Victoria persisted. 3 years is a long time to earn someone's trust, long enough to make you lower your guard. "I just want you to be careful. In your position, you can never be too careful." Her words planted a seed of doubt. In his world, betrayal came from those you trusted most. Suspicion was a tool for survival. He had watched his own father murdered by his closest friend. He learned that trust was a luxury he could not afford. The doubt grew quickly, poisoning his memories of Emma's smiles and kind glances. What once seemed innocent now looked like calculation. He chose to eliminate a perceived risk rather than trust the woman who had cared for his child for 3 years. He listened to a woman from his past instead of the person who was his present. And now, in the quiet of his study, Alex Thornton feared he had just thrown away the best thing in his life.
Victoria Ashford arrived that afternoon like a queen claiming her throne. Her red dress was expensive. Her heels clicked on the marble floor. Her smile was flawless and practiced. She found Alex in the living room, staring out the window with his second glass of whiskey. "I heard you handled the situation," she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "You did the right thing, my love." Alex said nothing. He just took a long drink. 8 years ago, Victoria Ashford and Alexander Thornton were about to be married. The invitations were sent. The church was booked. She thought she was about to become the wife of Charleston's most powerful man. Then Isabel appeared, a normal girl with nothing but a smile that captured Alex's heart. He broke the engagement 2 weeks before the wedding, humiliating Victoria in front of everyone. She never forgave him. She waited like a predator. When Isabel died, she saw her chance. After an hour of empty comfort, Victoria asked to use the restroom. Instead, she slipped into an empty hallway and made a call. Her voice turned cold and sharp. "Everything is going according to plan," she told her friend. "The little nanny is gone for good. She will not be back after a dismissal like that." Victoria's voice was full of triumph. "Now I just have to deal with the annoying little one." She laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Oh, she is not a problem. Once I marry Alex, I will ship her off to some boarding school in Switzerland. Alex will be upset for a while, but he will get over it. Men always listen if you handle them correctly. With the girl gone, it will all be mine. The money, the power. It all should have been mine 8 years ago." But Victoria did not know she was being watched. A few feet away, behind the playroom door, a little girl stood frozen. Charlie clutched her teddy bear, her small body trembling. She had heard every single word. Emmy was a nuisance. She was the annoying little one. Boarding school far away. The 5-year-old girl knew this woman hated her and Emmy. She knew this woman wanted them gone. Tears streamed down her face as she backed away, silent as a ghost, and ran to her room with a broken heart. Charlie woke up with puffy eyes after a night of tears. She immediately bolted from her bed and ran to Emma's room, just like every other morning. But the room was empty. The bed was perfectly made. The closet held nothing. Emma's familiar scent was gone. Even the soft shawl Charlie loved was missing. "Where is Emmy?" she asked Maggie when the housekeeper found her. Her small voice shook and her green eyes were wide with fear. "Why is her room empty?" Kneeling to meet her gaze, Maggie felt her heart ache as she delivered the terrible news. "Emmy is gone, honey." Her voice was a gentle whisper, trying not to break. "She is not here anymore." Charlie froze, as if she had turned into a statue. "Gone where? When is she coming back?" Maggie had no answers. She could only shake her head and try to hug the little girl, but Charlie pulled away. "Number. Emmy will be back. She promised she would never leave me." Charlie then ran through the mansion calling for her nanny. "Emmy, where are you? Stop hiding!" "I found you." But there was no reply. No one wrapped their arms around her from behind like they always did during their game. That day, Charlie refused her favorite breakfast of pancakes, leaving the plate untouched. By lunchtime, she had eaten nothing. That evening, she drank only a little milk before pushing it away. Alex tried to comfort her, but Charlie just stared at her father with a strange, hurtful expression before turning her head in silence. The second day was even harder. Charlie ignored her toys, cartoons, and books. She did nothing but sit by the window that overlooked the mansion's main gate, just waiting. She waited for Rob's car to return with Emmy. She waited to see the familiar shape of her nanny walk through the gate. She waited for a miracle. When Maggie offered her cookies and milk, Charlie simply pushed them away. "I do not want them. I only want Emmy." Rob tried to make her laugh with jokes, but the little girl would not even look at him. A heavy sadness fell over the entire house. That night, the sound of Charlie's crying filled the hallway. Alex found his daughter curled up in bed, clutching the teddy bear Emma had given her. "Emmy, Emmy," she sobbed. "I want Emmy to come back." Alex sat beside her, trying to gather her into his arms. "Daddy is here, Charlie.
I am here with you. But Charlie pushed him away. Her eyes were red and swollen as she looked at him with a pain that shattered his heart. Why did Emmy leave? Was I bad? Why did she not say goodbye? Alex had no answers. The words would not come as he watched his daughter fall apart. That night, a fever began to burn through her small body. Maggie checked her temperature and her face filled with worry. She is sick from crying too much, from not eating, from a sadness too big for her to hold. On the third day, Victoria arrived, wearing a perfect mask of concern. I heard Charlie was unwell, she said to Alex. Let me go see her. She entered Charlie's room with her kindest smile. Hello, sweetheart. Aunt Victoria is here. Should I read you a story? Charlie's response shocked them both. The little girl shot up in bed, her eyes blazing with fear and anger. Go away! I do not want you, she screamed, her voice raw. Go away! You are bad! Victoria stumbled backward, her expression faltering for a moment before she composed herself. She turned to Alex, her voice full of fake sorrow. She is just very upset. The fever is making her say things. I will wait downstairs. But as Victoria walked into the hall, her eyes flashed with cold fury. That little brat will regret this. Alex stared at his daughter, who was trembling on the bed, her eyes filled with tears and real terror. It was the first time she had looked at Victoria that way, since he had fired Emma. A seed of doubt finally took root in his mind. Charlie had never behaved like that. She was a sweet and polite child. Why was she so terrified of Victoria? Why did she hate her so much? He suddenly felt that he had missed something very important. That night, Charlie's fever grew worse. Alex sat by her bed from 9 o'clock, watching her sleep. Her cheeks were bright red and her lips were dry. She was clutching an old teddy bear, the last gift from Emma, the only thing that connected her to the nanny she had lost. She held it like a lifeline. Alex touched her forehead, feeling the intense heat against his skin, and his heart twisted in pain. His little girl was suffering because of a decision he had made. He leaned over, smoothing her tangled honey blonde hair. His voice was rough with worry. Sweetheart, he whispered, tell me why you are so sad. Charlie's green eyes opened, their gaze locking onto his. The simple innocence of a 5-year-old was gone. In its place was a profound sadness, and something that looked like disappointment. You made Emmy leave, she said, her voice faint but firm. Daddy, Emmy did nothing wrong. Alex froze. He wanted to explain, to defend his decision, but Charlie spoke again. I know why you sent her away. Daddy, I know everything. The words from his daughter struck Alex like a bolt of lightning. What do you know? He asked, his own voice unsteady. What are you talking about, Charlie? Slowly, Charlie sat up, gripping her teddy bear. I heard Victoria on the phone, she said, looking into his eyes with a seriousness far beyond her years. The day she got here, I was playing near the stairs. I heard all of it. The air in the room grew heavy, crushing Alex's chest. Charlie's voice began to tremble. Victoria said Emmy is a problem. She said I am an annoying little pest. She said when she marries you, she will send me to a school far away. She said life would be simpler without me around. Each word from Charlie was a blade twisting in Alex's heart. He was paralyzed, unable to process what he was hearing. Daddy, Victoria hates me. Tears streamed down Charlie's face. She hates Emmy. She only acts nice for you. She wanted Emmy gone. She wants me gone too, so she can have you and all the money. I heard her say it. Alex felt the world crumble beneath him. The truth formed a sickening picture, so different from what he had believed. Victoria's phone call that morning, her fabricated warnings about how Emma looked at him, her fake concern. It was all an act. He had been manipulated. He, Alexander Thornton, the Mafia boss feared by all of Charleston, was played for a fool. He had trusted Victoria's lies over the 3 years he had known Emma. He fired the woman who loved his daughter as her own. The woman who had brought light back into their home and made him think that life after Isabel could be good again. And Emmy never says mean things about people, Charlie sobbed.
Emmy really loves me. She sings me to sleep.
Emmy baked my birthday cake. When I cried because I miss Mommy, Emmy held me. She never called me a problem. Emmy said I was the best thing in the whole world. Why did you believe Victoria instead of Emmy, Daddy? The question shattered the armor Alex had spent years building. Tears fell before he could stop them, something no one had seen since Isabel's funeral. He gathered Charlie in his arms, holding her small, feverish body as she shook with sobs. I am sorry, he choked out, his voice thick with regret. I am so sorry, Charlie. I was wrong, completely wrong. Will you bring Emmy back? Charlie asked, her tear-filled eyes full of hope. Promise me, Daddy. Alex held her tighter, kissing her hot forehead. I promise, he said, his voice firm despite his tears. I will bring her back. I will fix my mistake. I promise you. That night, long after Charlie fell asleep, Alex sat by her bed. He watched her peaceful face, and a plan formed in his mind. First, Victoria would pay. Then he would find Emma and bring her home, even if it meant tearing Charleston apart to do it. The next morning, Victoria Ashford entered the Thornton mansion like a queen. She wore a stylish cream dress and a brilliant smile, acting as if she were already the lady of the house. She found Alex in the living room, his back to her, staring out the window. Good morning, darling, Victoria said sweetly, reaching to touch his shoulder. How is Charlie? Is her fever down? I was worried about her. Alex did not move. He remained still as a statue. When he finally spoke, his voice was ice. I know everything, Victoria. She froze, her hand hovering in the air. What? She asked, trying to sound innocent. What are you talking about? Alex turned. Victoria flinched at the look in his eyes. The warmth was gone. The weakness she had used against him was replaced by the cold ruthlessness of a mob boss facing an enemy. I know about your phone call, Alex stated, each word a hammer blow. I know you called the nanny a problem. I know you called my daughter an annoying little pest. And I know you planned to send Charlie away after our wedding. You thought I would never find out? But Charlie heard it all. Victoria's face paled for a moment before she regained her composure. Darling, she tried to smile, her voice shaking. She is only 5. She misunderstands things. She probably imagined it. Children have wild imaginations. Stop performing for me, Alex snapped, his voice sharp. I am done with your lies. Your call that morning, your warnings about Emma, it was all a scheme. You wanted her out of the way, but you made a mistake. Victoria saw that her act was failing. Her sweet expression melted away, revealing a bitter anger. She is just a nanny, Victoria yelled, her mask gone. A poor orphan with no one. You chose her over me. I am Victoria Ashford. I come from a good family. I waited 8 years for you, Alex. You owe me. You have owed me since you broke our engagement for Isabel. Alex walked toward her. With every step he took, she took one back until she hit the wall. I owe you nothing, he said, his voice dangerously low. And you made a terrible mistake when you involved my daughter. You will leave this house now. And you will never come near me or Charlie again. Is that a threat? Victoria asked, trying to sound brave. Have you forgotten what I know about your business? The late-night shipments? The secret meetings? I could go to the police. Alex let out a cold laugh. Do you know why the Charleston police leave me alone? He asked, speaking to her like a child. You think you understand my world, Victoria, but you have only seen the tip of the iceberg. Do not be stupid enough to challenge me. Now get out. Victoria stood frozen, her face colorless. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She finally understood she had played with fire and been burned. Maggie appeared at the doorway as if on cue. I will show you out, she said to Victoria, her voice flat and disrespectful. And do not leave anything behind, because you will not be coming back. Victoria hurried from the room, all her previous confidence gone. The clicking of her heels faded down the hall until the front door slammed shut. Maggie looked at Alex with approval and concern. What are you waiting for? She asked. Her voice softened. Go find her. Alex sped through the streets of Charleston. He pushed the car as fast as he could without attracting the police. He could not afford a delay. Every second felt like another mile growing between him and Emma. He turned into a part of town he had never seen before. Old houses stood crowded together, with peeling paint and faded roofs. It was nothing like his own gated neighborhood. This was a world of ordinary people with simple lives. This was Emma's world. He had never bothered to notice. He stopped before a two-story house with a broken fence and a yard full of weeds. The address from her employee file said this was where she rented a room. His heart pounded as he walked up the creaking steps and knocked on the door. He had no idea what to say. "I am sorry." Would that be enough? Could she ever forgive him? Would she even want to come back? The door opened. An older woman with white hair and curious eyes looked at him. "Who are you looking for?" she asked. "I am looking for Emma Sullivan." Alex spoke, his heart pounding in his chest. "She rented a room from you, right, Miss Sullivan?" The old woman raised her eyebrows. "She moved out this morning." The words struck Alex like ice. "Moved out?" he repeated, his voice tight. "Where did she go?" The landlady just shrugged. "I have no idea." She did not say. She just paid her rent, thanked me, and left. Poor thing. She looked so heartbroken. Her eyes were all swollen from crying. I asked if she was okay, but she just gave a small smile and said she would be fine. Alex stood there completely stunned. Emma was gone. He had no idea where she was. "Did she say anything at all?" he asked urgently. "A city? A relative?" The woman shook her head. "That girl has no family. She grew up in an orphanage. No parents, no siblings. I was the closest thing she had to a relative around here." Alex walked away without another word, his mind racing. Emma had no family and no home to return to. She could be anywhere in the country, and he might never find her again. For the first time in a long time, Alexander Thornton felt true panic. Once in his car, he dialed Marcus, the man he trusted most in his criminal enterprise. The phone barely rang twice. "Boss, what do you need?" "Find a woman," Alex commanded, his voice cold as steel, the tone he reserved for private orders. "Her name is Emma Sullivan. She is 27 years old, with brown hair and brown eyes, around 5 feet 5 inches tall. She abandoned her old address this morning. I want every airport, bus depot, and train station in this city covered. Check all roads leading out of Charleston. I want her found now." Marcus answered instantly. "I am sending the men." Alex's influence ran deep through Charleston. He had contacts with the police, at the airport, and inside transport companies. If Emma was in the city, his network would find her. The hours that followed were a special kind of hell for Alex. He drove aimlessly through the streets, stopping at places he knew Emma enjoyed. He checked Waterfront Park, the ice cream parlor by the pier, and the library where she took Charlie to read. There was no trace of her. His phone finally rang as he sat parked by the road, watching people pass in a blur. "Boss," Marcus's voice was tense. "We have her. She is at the Central bus station. She bought a ticket for Atlanta. Her bus departs in 30 minutes. Alex did not wait for another word. He slammed his foot on the accelerator, and the car flew through the streets of Charleston. He raced through a yellow light, weaved between lanes, and blared his horn at anyone moving too slow. A single thought echoed in his mind like a desperate chant. "Do not leave. Please, Emma. Do not leave. Just give me one more chance." He had 30 minutes. 30 minutes to get to the station, to find Emma in that sea of people, and to convince her that he could be forgiven. 30 minutes to salvage everything he had so carelessly broken. Alexander Thornton had never driven so fast in his entire life. The Charleston bus station was pure chaos at midday. Horns blared while people shouted over the noise of departure announcements and roaring engines. Alex ignored the no parking signs and the angry glare from a security guard, pulling up directly to the entrance. He pushed inside, his gaze scanning the area like a bird of prey. Dozens of buses waited, their signs showing destinations like Atlanta, Savannah, and Jacksonville. Crowds of people moved constantly, pulling suitcases and holding onto children. He searched the masses for her slender frame and her familiar brown hair, but saw only the faces of strangers. His heart pounded harder with every second that disappeared, taking his hope with it. Then he spotted her. Emma was at Gate 7, where the bus to Atlanta was boarding. She carried a small, dark blue suitcase that he recognized from her room. The back of her white shirt was creased, as if she had been wearing it for days. Her hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. From this distance, he could see her shoulders seemed to have narrowed, a sign that she had not been eating. She was on the first step of the bus when he called out her name. "Emma, wait!" His voice cut through the noise, causing heads to turn. Emma turned as well. She stood frozen on the step, her hand gripping the rail. Her brown eyes were wide with shock as she stared at him standing just a few yards away. Her face was paler than he remembered, her eyes puffy and shadowed from too many tears and too little sleep. Even then, her beauty was enough to cause him pain. She slowly stepped back down and placed her suitcase on the pavement, but she did not move any closer. The gap between them felt like an impossible canyon. "What are you doing here?" Emma asked. Her voice was cold, as if he were a complete stranger. She called him Sir, not Alex. The word hit him harder than a bullet. "Please," Alex said, taking one step forward. He stopped when she immediately stepped back. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" Emma's voice rose, filled with all the pain she had suppressed for days. "Explain firing me without a single reason? Explain how you looked right through me in your study that morning? You said my services were no longer required. You treated me like an object to be discarded when you were finished with it." She paused for breath, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. 3 years, Mr. Thornton. For 3 years I cared for Charlie. I sang her to sleep every single night. I wiped away her tears when she missed her mother. I taught her how to read. I stayed with her through every fever. I loved that little girl as if she were my own child. And you threw me away like I was garbage. You gave me no explanation, no chance to say anything. You could not even meet my eyes when you dismissed me. So what is there left for you to explain? Alex stood and absorbed her words like a physical punishment. He deserved her fury. He deserved the hurt in her voice and the disappointment in her eyes. "I know," he said, his own voice rough with emotion. "I was wrong. There is no excuse for what I did. But you have to know the truth. Victoria manipulated me." Emma became still, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Victoria called me that morning," Alex continued, aware of the departing bus. "She said the way you looked at me was not right, that you had bad intentions. I was a fool. I believed her instead of trusting what I had seen with my own eyes for 3 years. I pushed you away because of a lie. And Charlie." He saw Emma's expression change at the mention of his daughter's name. "Charlie overheard Victoria talking on the phone with a friend. She heard Victoria call you a problem. She heard her call Charlie an annoying little thing. She heard Victoria say she would send her to boarding school after we were married. Charlie told me everything. Since you left, she has not eaten. She will not sleep. She just cries and asks for you. She has had a fever for 3 days, Emma. 3 days. All she does is call out your name. Emmy. Emmy." She is delirious. Alex's voice cracked. "I am so sorry. I am sorry I doubted you and threw you out. I am sorry for the pain I caused you and Charlie. Please do not go. Do not leave Charlie. She needs you. And I need you." The bus horn sounded its final 5-minute warning. But neither of them moved. They just stood there facing each other as the world rushed around them. Emma stared at him, her brown eyes filled with conflict. It was a feeling between pain and something else she wouldn't name. "So this was all because of Victoria," she said, her voice laced with acid. "A single phone call and a few words were enough for you to destroy everything. 3 years with me and Charlie meant less than her lies." Alex took a slow, deep breath. He knew this was it. There were no more walls to hide behind. "The world I come from," he started, his tone quiet and heavy. "Emotion makes you weak. If you love someone, Your enemies use that person against you. If you trust someone, they use that trust to destroy you. I saw my own father murdered by his best friend. I have watched too many people die because they dared to care. His gaze locked with Emma's. So I learned to doubt everyone. It is how I survived. It is why I am alive today when so many others are gone. I built a fortress around myself and let nobody inside. I never allowed anyone to get close enough to hurt me. But you, his voice softened. His eyes held a vulnerability she had never seen in him. You made me want to be weak. I watched you with Charlie. I saw how you held her, how you laughed with her. You made that cold house feel like a home. I saw a family. For the first time since Isabel died, I wanted to believe in something again. I wanted to belong. I wanted to love without being afraid. I was terrified of that feeling, of the warmth you brought into my life. When Victoria fed me those doubts, I used them as an excuse. I had to push you away before you could get any closer. I was a coward, Emma. I have never been more afraid of an enemy than I was of you. Emma stood frozen, absorbing his confession. Her heart was torn between wanting to believe him and the fear of being broken again. How can I trust you? She finally asked, her voice trembling. You hurt me. You could do it again. What happens next time? Another woman makes an accusation, and you tell me to leave. Another suspicion without proof, and I am packing my bags. I do not think I can survive that a second time. You have every right to doubt me, Alex said, his voice firm. I do not deserve your trust. I know that. If you get on that bus, I will not blame you. But I am asking for one chance. Just one. Let me prove I can be a man you can trust. Not with promises, but with my actions. Every single day, I will show you that I am not that coward anymore. The bus horn blared again, a final warning. The driver glared at Emma. She looked from the bus to Alex, her decision hanging in the air. This moment would change the rest of her life. If I come back, she said, measuring each word, I will need time. Time to process what happened. I cannot just pretend it is all okay. We cannot go back to how we were. Alex nodded, holding his breath, terrified of breaking the spell. And I need you to understand something, Emma continued, her voice gaining strength. I am doing this for Charlie, not for you. She is hurting, and I will not abandon her. That is it. Do not expect anything else. A small flame of hope lit up in Alex's eyes. Only for Charlie? He asked quietly. Emma did not reply. She just looked at him, her expression full of 1,000 emotions. And in that quiet moment, they both knew the truth. It was not only for Charlie. The bus doors hissed shut and it pulled away from the station, leaving Emma behind. She picked up her suitcase and walked past Alex toward the exit. He stood stunned for a second, before rushing to follow her. He would not let her walk away this time. The black car moved through the familiar streets of Charleston as the sun began to set. Emma sat in the back, staring out the window but seeing nothing. Her mind was a whirlwind. That morning, she had been ready to leave this city behind for good. She was going to start over where no one knew her name. But now, she was returning to the very house she thought she would never see again. The setting sun cast a golden glow on the white walls as the car reached the iron gate. It was the same light as the day she left. The same walls, the same gravel driveway. Yet everything felt different. She had left that day with her heart in pieces. She returned today with a fragile hope for a new beginning. Alex got out first and opened her door. Emma stepped out, inhaling the familiar scent of magnolias. Before she could move, the mansion's front doors swung open. Maggie stood there, her apron dusted with flour, her eyes red and full of tears. "Thank God," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank God you came home." Rob stood behind her. For the first time in the 3 years Emma had known him, she saw the quiet man truly smile. It was a warm, relieved smile full of genuine joy. "You are back," he said, his voice deep and steady. "This is good." But before Emma could respond, a scream cut through the quiet evening air. Emmy! Charlie flew out from behind Maggie, her small legs moving so fast she almost fell. Her blonde hair streamed behind her, her green eyes wide with disbelief and pure joy. The smile on her face was the brightest Emma had ever seen. Emmy is back! Emmy is back! Emma fell to her knees just as Charlie crashed into her. Tiny arms wrapped around Emma's neck, holding on as if she might vanish. The little girl's body shook with sobs and laughter. Emma hugged her back, clutching the child she loved as her own. Tears streamed down her own face. 3 days apart felt like an eternity. 3 days without Charlie's laugh, without her hugs, without her bedtime songs. Now the child was warm and real in her arms again. Emmy, Charlie sobbed into her shoulder. Emmy came back. You will not go away again. Okay? Promise me, Emmy. Promise you will never leave me again. I promise, Emma whispered, her voice cracking. I promise, sweetheart. I am not going anywhere. I will stay right here with you. They stayed that way on the gravel path, clinging to each other in silence. Alex watched from a distance, his own eyes wet. Maggie wiped her face on her apron, and Rob turned away, clearing his throat. Finally, Maggie softly said that dinner was ready. Charlie finally loosened her grip, but refused to let go of Emma's hand. That evening, the meal was the warmest the house had seen in 3 years. The four of them sat at the kitchen table, not in the formal dining room. There was no formality, only stories, quiet laughter, and thankful eyes. Charlie stayed glued to Emma's side, insisting that Emma feed her every bite. She talked about the days Emma was gone, how much she cried, and how she clutched the teddy bear Emma had given her. Emma just listened, gently stroking Charlie's hair while her own heart began to heal. After dinner, Emma took Charlie upstairs. She helped her change into pajamas and brush her teeth before tucking her into bed with the teddy bear. Settle down, little princess, Emma said softly, pulling up the covers. It is time to sleep. Will Emi sing to me? Charlie asked. Just like always, sweetheart. Emma sat on the bed and stroked her hair. She began the lullaby she had sung 1,000 times before. Her voice was gentle and sure, filled with all her love for the little girl. Charlie held her hand, her eyes slowly closing as a peaceful smile touched her lips. When the song was over, Charlie was fast asleep. Emma watched her for a few more minutes, making a silent vow. She would never let this child feel that kind of pain again. Whatever happened between her and Alex, she would always be here for Charlie. Emma quietly closed the bedroom door and stood in the hall. She could hear the child's steady breathing. Tonight, Charlie would sleep peacefully. She walked downstairs through the silent living room and out onto the back porch. It was her favorite spot, with a view of the Cooper River under the moon and the sound of the wind in the old oak trees. The moon was a bright, full circle tonight, casting a silver light over the calm water. Emma leaned on the wooden railing, breathing in the cool Charleston air. She heard soft footsteps behind her and knew it was Alex before she turned. He stood next to her, leaving a small, comfortable space between them. They looked out at the river together, sharing a quiet moment. It was not a tense silence, but an easy one that exists between two people who no longer need words. Isabel enjoyed standing here too, Alex said after a while, his voice low. On nights like this, she would come out and sit for hours. She said the river helped her think. Emma remained quiet, just listening. It was the first time he had ever spoken of his late wife to her in a personal way. She would have liked you, Alex continued, his gaze still on the water. She always said I needed someone to pull me out of my own darkness, someone who was not afraid of my world, but who would not let it consume her. She worried that after she passed, I would close my heart off for good. It seems she was right. He finally turned and looked at Emma. Until you came along. Emma's heart beat a little, faster, but she kept her voice even. I am not anyone special. I am just a girl from an orphanage with a college education,
and a willingness to work. "Tell me about when you were a child," Alex said gently. "I have realized I know very little about your past." Emma paused for a second before she spoke. "I grew up in an orphanage. I had no mother or father, no siblings. I had no one to call my family. For 18 years, I watched other kids get adopted while I was always left behind. I learned never to expect anything from anyone. In the end, everyone leaves." Her gaze drifted into the distance. "But being here with Charlie," she said, her voice growing softer, "was the first time I ever felt like I belonged somewhere. It was the first time someone waited for me each morning and needed me each night. She loved me and asked for nothing. She gave me something I never had in 27 years, a family, even if it was just a borrowed one." Alex did not say anything. He slowly moved his hand along the railing until it covered hers. He held her small hand in his, a gentle but firm grip. Emma felt the warmth from his touch and did not pull back. She let her hand rest in his, a quiet form of acceptance. "Thank you for giving me a second chance," Alex said, his voice sincere. "I know I do not deserve it, but I will spend my life trying to." Emma looked at him, the moonlight reflecting in her brown eyes. "Do not waste it," she said. The words were both a warning and a promise. Alex nodded, squeezing her hand gently. They stood there under the Charleston moon, watching the Cooper River sparkle. For the first time, they were not a boss and an employee. They were just two people who had been broken, trying to find their way back together. The days that followed felt like a beautiful dream. Alex Thornton, the feared Mafia boss of Charleston, began to change. The man who used to come home at 10 at night, long after Charlie was asleep, now walked through the door at 6 in the evening. He was always on time for dinner and listened to his daughter talk about her day. The man who once only understood numbers now spent his afternoons playing hide and seek with Charlie in the garden. He let her ride on his back like a horse and sat for hours while she read him picture books. He even went into the kitchen every morning, trying to learn how to make pancakes from Maggie. His first efforts were burned black. Maggie had to hide her smile. But he kept trying. On the 5th day, his pancakes were perfect. They looked like they came from a restaurant kitchen. Emma watched him from a distance. A part of her felt warm, but another part told her to run. The last time she trusted someone, she was badly hurt. The scars were not gone yet. But every day, Alex did something small. Every look he gave her made the wall around her heart crack just a little. Then came that morning. Emma was sound asleep when something small and full of energy jumped on her bed. It woke her instantly. "Emmy, wake up!" a little voice shouted in her ear. Charlie's tiny hands shook her shoulders. "Today is a big day." Emma blinked. Charlie's excited face was right above hers. The girl's blonde hair was a mess from sleep, but her green eyes were brilliant. "A big day for what, sweetie?" Emma asked. Her voice was thick with sleep. "What is today?" Charlie gave her a secret smile. "I cannot tell you. But you have to get up. Now, Emmy, hurry!" She took Emma's hand and pulled with all the might a 5-year-old has. Before Emma could even sit up, the bedroom door swung open. Alex was standing there. He held a large wooden tray. It had a huge stack of pancakes, a bowl of colorful fruit, and 2 cups of hot coffee. "Good morning," Alex said. His smile made him seem 10 years younger. "I am serving breakfast today." Emma just stared. She looked at him, then at Charlie, then back to him. She could not process what she was seeing. The most dangerous man in Charleston stood in her room with a breakfast tray. He wore a simple t-shirt and pants, looking like a normal father. "It was my plan," Charlie announced. She climbed onto the bed next to Emma. "I told Daddy to make you food, Emmy. He did a good job. They are not burnt this time." Alex placed the tray on the bed and sat on the other side. So the 3 of them ate breakfast together in Emma's bed. Charlie sat in the middle, talking about everything and nothing while she ate. Then she suddenly stopped. Her face became serious, too serious for a child. "Emmy," she said, her voice quiet but strong.
I know Mommy Isabel is in heaven. Mommy is not coming home.
Both Emma and Alex froze. They stared at the little girl. It was the first time Charlie had ever mentioned her birth mother on her own like this. But Maggie says a heart can love many people, Charlie continued. Her green eyes were locked on Emma.
So I love Mommy Isabel in the sky, and I love Emmy on the ground. I can love you both. Is that all right, Emmy? Tears filled Emma's eyes. She pulled Charlie into a hug and held her tightly, crying openly. Of course it is all right, my love, she sobbed. Of course it is. Your heart is big enough for everyone. Alex sat watching them, his own eyes wet. His daughter, the little girl he worried might never recover, was choosing to love again. She was not leaving the past behind, but adding to it. She had healed in a way he never thought possible. Charlie then pulled out of the hug. She turned to her father with a determined look. Your turn now, she commanded. Both Alex and Emma were startled. You made a promise. Last night, you promised you would say it today. Say it, Daddy. Alex cleared his throat. His face turned red, like a nervous boy admitting a crush. He looked at Emma, a rare shyness in his eyes. He took a deep breath, like a soldier before a great battle. Alex looked straight at Emma. His deep blue eyes held a truth she had not seen in their 3 years together. He let out a long breath. When he finally spoke, his voice shook, like the words had been trapped inside, for far too long. Emma, he started, his voice soft. I know I failed you. I was a coward. I pushed you away because I was scared of how I felt. I was wrong to believe someone else instead of you. I know you have no reason to trust me. You have every right to get up and leave this room. Emma was completely still. Her heart was beating so fast she thought he must hear it. She said nothing. She only watched and listened. But these last few days have changed everything, Alex said, his eyes never leaving hers. I love you, Emma. I do not love you because you are a wonderful nanny. I do not love you because you have cared for Charlie for 3 years. I love you for you. I love how you look after my daughter. The songs you sing to her at night, your patience when she is difficult. I love that you made this empty house feel like a home. You brought joy back into these quiet rooms after Isabel was gone. You make me want to be a good man, a good father. I thought my life was meant to be dark. I thought I would always live with grief, but you were the light. I did not see it until I nearly lost you for good. Alex took Emma's hand, his grip gentle but firm, as if she might fade away. I want to build a life with you, he began. Not as my employee, but as my partner. I want a true family where you are cherished and feel you belong. I need to do this the right way, with all my heart. Let me love you for the rest of my days. A wave of emotion tightened Emma's throat. She saw Charlie beside her, hands gripped together, her eyes wide with nervous hope. In the doorway stood Maggie, silently wiping tears on her apron. And then there was Alex. He was the man who had once broken her spirit. But now, he stood with no walls and no secrets, just raw honesty in his eyes. He was waiting for her judgment. Emma's entire life flashed before her. 27 years of isolation, of having no one. She recalled a little girl's dream in an orphanage, a simple wish for a home and a place at a dinner table. That future was now in front of her, if only she could be brave enough to claim it. Yes. The word was a soft whisper. Yes, she repeated, her voice stronger, her gaze locked with his. I accept all of it. A brilliant smile transformed Alex's face, like the sun breaking through clouds. He cupped her cheeks, gently wiping away a tear with his thumb before he leaned in. The kiss was tender, full of unspoken promises for a future they had never dared to want. It was a taste of new beginnings and years of longing finally ending. Yay! Charlie's joyful scream shattered the quiet moment. She bounced on the bed, clapping her hands. Daddy and Emmy kissed just like in a movie. So is Emmy my new mom now? Alex and Emma broke apart, both of them laughing. Charlie looked at Emma, her eyes pleading. Can I call you Mom? Please, Emmy. I am begging you. I will be so good. I will eat all my carrots. I will go to bed on time. Just let me call you Mom. Emma looked to Alex for guidance. He just smiled and nodded, his own eyes wet with tears. It is your decision. I will support you no matter what. Emma turned back to Charlie, this little girl who had already captured her heart and taught her what it felt like to truly belong. Yes, my love, she said, her voice thick with emotion. If you want to, you can call me Mom. Mom! Charlie shrieked and launched herself into Emma's embrace. She clung to her neck tightly. My mom! I finally have a mom! Tears streamed down Emma's face as she held the little girl. For 27 years, that word had been a stranger to her. She never dreamed she would hear it. Coming from this 5-year-old, it was the sweetest sound she had ever known. Hello, my daughter, Emma whispered. Alex's arms encircled them both, holding them in a perfect hug. In the doorway, Maggie cried openly. On that sunlit Charleston morning, a new family was born from love and choice. 3 broken hearts had found their home in each other. They stayed there together on the messy bed, unwilling to let go as the morning light filled the room with a golden glow. The doubt and fear were gone. The pain of being apart was over. There were just 3 people and 3 hearts, held together by an enormous love. Charlie suddenly lifted her head and looked toward the window. Look, she whispered in awe. A butterfly. Alex and Emma turned. A brilliant yellow butterfly sat on the windowsill, its wings moving gently in the breeze. It stayed for a moment, as if observing them. Then it flew away into the clear blue sky. That is a message from Mommy Isabel, Charlie said with total conviction. She is happy. She is telling us she approves of Emmy being my new mom. Alex hugged the 2 of them tighter, watching the butterfly disappear. I believe you are right, sweetheart, he said, his voice full of feeling. I am sure she is very happy. She always wanted this for us. They hugged once more, this time with joyful smiles instead of tears. Outside, the city of Charleston was starting a new day. But inside that room, a new life was starting. Their journey began with injustice and a terrible mistake. It ended in forgiveness and a love that was strong enough to overcome anything. This was a family built on choice, not biology. Their love was intentional, cared for, and protected every single day. An orphan finally found the home she had wanted for 27 years. A man with a closed-off heart learned how to feel again, and a young girl chose her own mother. 3 lost souls found their way home, together forever. If this story moved you and made you believe in second chances, please help us share it. Click the like button, send this video to someone who needs it, and subscribe to our channel. Turn on your notifications so you never miss our moving stories. We want to know how this story made you feel. Have you ever known someone like Emma, a person who was deeply misunderstood? Or have you made a mistake like Alex, trusting the wrong person? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below and let us know where you are watching from. We love knowing our stories are traveling all over the world. Please remember that the most important people might be standing right beside you. Things like pride, fear, or lies can blind us to the truth. Do not repeat Alex's error. Cherish the people who love you before it is too late. Before we go, we send our best wishes to everyone watching. We hope you have good health, a life full of joy, and peace every single day. Thank you for listening to our story. Goodbye, and we will see you again soon.